What is buyer agency, and what are its pros and cons? The short of the matter is that buyer agency is a contractual relationship, here called the buyer representation agreement, that you enter into with a real estate salesperson or broker. The intent of the contract is to secure the services of that agent on your behalf for a set period of time. More importantly, what are the benefits and disadvantages of hiring a buyer's agent? Let's break it down. First of all, this information is intended for a Wisconsin audience. If you're watching from a different jurisdiction, the statutes and contracts may differ from the information provided here. In Wisconsin, the default relationship between a buyer and the agent who's assisting in the transaction has historically been at the behest of the seller. The seller was the one who signed a contract for listing services, and we'll have another video on that, and so the agents involved in the transaction were all working on that seller's behalf. As real estate transactions have become more and more involved over time, buyers expressed a desire to have that licensed professional working for them on their team, as opposed to in an adversarial position to them. Thus, buyer agency was formalized and popularized in many states in the U.S. starting in the 1990s, including Wisconsin. Every state will have laws which cover the practice of real estate and the obligations agents owe to consumers of real estate services. In Wisconsin, it would be Chapter 452 of our state statutes. In this statute is a section on the duties agents owe to both consumers of real estate who are unaffiliated with an agent and the duties owed by agents to their clients who are subject to a buyer representation agreement. The duties owed to everyone include such things as providing brokerage services honestly and fairly and with reasonable skill and care, keeping information that a reasonable party would want held confidential, and the disclosure of known material adverse facts, among others. This allows the consumer to have a certain amount of comfort when dealing with an agent in general. However, this doesn't put all the skills and knowledge a good real estate agent has at a buyer's disposal, because barring a buyer representation agreement, the majority of that agent's obligations are to the seller of a transaction, because the seller is the client. The duties owed to a client by statute include those to the general public, but are supplemented by critical additional duties which free that agent up to advocate and volunteer information to that party's interests, provided they do not violate any other duties or obligations such as fair housing, also another topic we'll cover. What does this all mean to you, the buyer? Well, if an agent is touring a property with you without the benefit of a buyer representation agreement, they are in fact there as the seller's representative and are working on the seller's behalf as a subagent of the seller and listing broker. They're obligated to point out material adverse facts, such as a visibly leaking roof or other significant known safety defect, but are essentially prohibited from volunteering negative information about the property that falls short of that obligation to disclose. This also means that technically that agent is responsible for discussing each property they show you in a manner that shows the property to its best advantage in every home they tour with you, whether they know that seller personally or not. This leaves the buyer in a position where they must know to ask the relevant questions before the agent can volunteer the information, unless, of course, the volunteered information is to the best interest of the seller or is of sufficient magnitude that it triggers the required disclosure. As a subagent of the seller, it is literally the agent's job to sell that home on the terms most favorable to the seller, no matter how much they like you personally or whether they know the seller at all. So to have the full benefit of your agent's knowledge and experience, you need to have a signed buyer representation agreement with them so they can freely discuss both the pros and the cons with you. So what's the catch? Primarily, you will be committing to use the services of one broker and one broker only for a time. For the term of your agreement, your new agent will become your partner and your source of information and access about and to the property. You'll no longer have the freedom to contact any agent on a whim for information without potentially having unwanted financial consequences. While your agent is now obligated to you, you are also obligated to your agent in return to use their services. So, choose an agent who you feel confident will tirelessly advocate on your behalf and will be responsive to your needs. Also, while the majority of the time the commission is still provided for through the home's listing on the Multiple Listing Service, or MLS, there can be occasions where the use of a buyer's agent can change the net result of an offer for a seller or buyer because it can represent an extra cost at closing. While this is atypical, it does happen, so discuss this potential with your prospective agent before signing any agreement. We believe that the buyer agency model will best suit what most people are looking for in their real estate transaction. A good real estate agent is more than a door opener. They are your advocate, your objective set of eyes on a property, helping you vet each home you tour. They are knowledgeable about current market trends, whether about the physical aspects of a home or the tips and tricks currently in vogue in offers to purchase that can make the difference between winning a home in a rising market or buffering a buyer in a challenging sale. So, do your homework when choosing an agent and choose a great one.